need your help, I don't need your lies. To the whispers in my head, with the voice that sounds just like mine. They say no, I can't, without a thought sometimes. Through a speech made in my gut, with the wings of the butterflies I had. I used to drink to tame it, cause my sober mind couldn't find a way to peace. It paused the war for a gunfight. So I'm saying now, 10 years dry as dust, looking you right in the eye. And I ain't high and I ain't drunk. I'ma take my time, and you could take your bad advice. You could eat your lies, choke on your tongue, swallow the knife. And like water to the rain, man, like color to the rainbow, like giving to the same hand. Alright, I'm good on my own. Yeah, I'ma do this alone. I need you to go. How's this for me? Inside of my eye there's a Brutus, like inside of me I got a Judas. Like part of me likes the venom, like there's a me in me that's hoping I won't get up and get him. Like there's a little percent of me that's an enemy, doesn't want to win, it wants to Kennedy. Anything that could be better me, it's pitching me jealousy, hissing through my ambition. And I'll admit it's in the soul of my melodies. And the trick is I'm kind of buying that. Would I be ambitious without this line on my back? Is this prison in me mine, like I designed that? Am I sick but don't mind, cause the wine that I like is the dime tap. I know I'm addicted to the lies that I'm blind to. Now I'm on a mission in my mind just to find you. And I know you listen, this a light to ignite you, to get you like flies in the bayou. Cause like water to the rain, man, like color to the rainbow, like giving to the same hand. Alright, I'm good on my own. I'ma do this alone. I need you to go. How's this for me?
Good evening. What's going on, guys? What is going on? Still sitting in the same spot as we were last night. A little bit of a development. We did get a kick to the downside on the smaller time frames. So maybe, is it building support? Or are we going for the smaller time frame rejection ABC? Who knows? I'm gonna go ahead and switch over here. Pop this out. And alrighty, there we go. What's going on, guys? Sky Knight, what's going on, man? Thanks for being first. Longle. Anyone else required a KYC on Femex, even with VPN and Kite Link? I did see that. Even on my profile, which usually they kind of give me like special permission sometimes. I'm seeing KYC to deposit. I can still withdraw, so that's not an issue. But yeah, I can't make my deposits. So, L-Bank still works for me. I don't know if it's like that for anybody else. But that might be something I go back to. I mean, if they change up their policy versus what they said in their email, then all that does to me is release me from my contract. There's no reason for me to deal with them anymore. But yeah, I guess something must have changed recently in order to force them to do that. I mean, the way things are moving in the future, it's getting closer and closer to the point where I might just have to just deal with just straight spot trading. Which, I mean, I have been for the most part, but, I've been making some trades here and there on L-Bank and Femex when it allows. And let me check something out real quick. I might do a little bit more research into Coinbase futures, but last time I checked, like, yes, there is leverage, but at the same time, I think there is the risk of owing money on the account which I don't think I would be ever in danger of just because of the way I manage my risk. But if that's the case, I wouldn't feel comfortable like introducing people to it on stream. Because obviously, like, you know, newer traders and stuff, they're more prone to going 100x leverage, liquidating their account. But if that's the case and liquidation means you're owing $5,000 in the negatives, well then that just ain't gonna happen. I'm not gonna have someone screaming at me for that. I'll look into it. We'll see. For US based customers. Women golf coach. Good morning, Austin from Vietnam. Good morning. Good morning to you, buddy. Good morning from Australia. Good morning, buddy. Grush chicken tendies. Wise words from wise man chicken tendies. Good morning from North Korea. If only. Alright, let me go ahead and blank the chart here. So, as always, just restarting from the beginning, each live stream. So, macro perspective first. Alright, the big thing to worry about is we are starting to get a slowdown and quicker pullbacks. So, just like how, you know, the top of this bull market over here, you know, we were in a pretty steady uptrend, and all of a sudden we started getting quicker and quicker pullbacks, and eventually led to the final top. I'm kind of thinking the same thing, just on a more macro scale here. You can see 3-layer top. So as long as we are kind of hanging around this level here of 10,000, you know, since we're in the 100,000s now, all right, until we get back down, I'm just going to refer to everything as double digit. So in this case, 9,558-ish. That region is where I'm going to be either selling, you know, staying out of the market, or shorting. Now, on the smaller time frames, of course, at the current moment, we are retesting that previous resistance. All right. Now, we can see that we did have our first rejection. We're coming back up for another retest here. Definitely could be putting in a smaller time frame, ABC, if we don't continue to get rejected. Now, I'm not, you know, completely bear here. Obviously, the macro is leading me one way, of course, until we surpass this region. All right. I just want to make sure everybody really understands that the probability is to the downside right now. We're sitting at a macro resistance. We've already had one try to the upside to get past it. We failed. We did build a layer of support, which we then bounced off of. And now we're coming back up for a second retest. We do have a chance to get past this resistance. I'm not denying that. All right. So it is there. But in my, you know, my opinion, all right, I am looking at this as more of a retest rejection here. Now, if we do happen to continue on, you know, and have one more spurt to the downside here, if we do happen to build a larger structure, and that structure confirms to the upside here, I would be willing to reinsert money back into the market and or take a long position there, looking for a possibility, and to me, a more secure possibility that we actually might surpass this resistance quite, I wouldn't say significantly, but decently. All right. It could just be another retest of this higher resistance here with kind of like a blow off top, you know, extending a little bit further into the higher ranges, you know, maybe into the 20,000s to maybe like low 15K. And then that might be the final top. Or maybe there is no top to begin with. Maybe I'm just talking a whole bunch of horseshit here, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at from a larger macro perspective. So until we either get a larger long trade or we surpass this quite significantly, I would say a continuation past this last recent local high, then we will see whether or not we can actually continue into the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But yeah, I'm still in kind of a probability bearish stance. All right, it's nothing against the bulls. All right, I'm not rooting from one side or the other. It simply just comes down to what the chart's showing me. Now, obviously, that's just Bitcoin itself. If we go ahead and we look at like Ethereum, for example, Ethereum did put in that higher high the other night. All right, so we do have a macro, or as macro as we can get on Ethereum because the structure is pretty thin. ABC formation. So if we do happen to get rejected here, that could be a bad sign for Ethereum going forward. We might have to come back down and retest the bottom of the range here, or maybe even a little bit lower at 2,300. So we'll kind of see how that works out. Now this B wave is kind of short. It is true. All right, we do have an A to a B to a C. So the structure is definitely there. It's just a very short B wave. So to me, it's not invalid, but like it just does look a little bit weird. So just kind of makes me standoffish a little bit with how it's currently sitting. Now, we talked about a Litecoin kind of in depth last night from a macro perspective. And in all honesty, like the actual like macro outlook for Litecoin to me looks pretty good. Just in terms of like the macro supports and resistances, how they've been retested, how we're starting to see signs of life along previous levels that currently kept failing. And then obviously on like the medium to macro time frame for Litecoin here, you can definitely see that we have an A to a B. We did have the A to B to C at the very bottom of the B wave. Actually a very fantastic entry. Kind of unfortunate that I didn't go ahead and hop into that, but you can see to me, I mean, it definitely looks like it wants to come back up and retest this previous high. It might be a little bit longer. Maybe this just turns into a slightly higher retest. Maybe we don't come all the way back up to the all-time high, not the all-time high, but the local high here, and then come back down, maybe form one of those, and then maybe we go for that second retest here. We'll see how that works out. But like I said, from a very, very super macro perspective of Litecoin, I think things look really good. So, I don't think anything's going to happen very soon. But, I mean, when it comes to whenever the next cycle really takes over, I do think that we'll see decent numbers on Litecoin. I'm not like saying all-time high or an extension past it, but better than what we saw last cycle. Last cycle was kind of disappointing, to be honest with you. We had the 2021 cycle, and it did very well. From this ABC position on Litecoin, I mean, we had quite the significant push to the upside. Nothing like the altcoiners want to see, but I mean, gosh darn, 1,000% ain't too bad, is it? So something to be aware of. Like I said, and that all has to do with the ABC to the downside during the bear market, creating that local low support resistance. You can see how we've been treating it as resistance with very clear and concise rejections. But then we had a little bit of an extension past it, and now the market's coming back down to retest these previous lows and see if it can do something a little bit special. And we're starting to get to the point where we might actually flip this and start using it as support, and that would be a really good place for spot buys. I think I have to KYC on new L bank accounts as well. Old one I don't have to. Yeah, they probably changed their policy for new accounts, but I haven't had an issue with my old one. I've just been using the same one. Yeah, I'm sure I'll take a look at all the different exchanges. At some point here in the future. It's I still got one that works, so to me it's no different. I'll probably go take a look at like Coinbase Advanced, see what options they offer, and see if that's a thing that I can do. Like I said, if it does happen to have your account go into the negatives, that's an issue for me talking about it on stream. All right. I do believe that if you can manage your risk correctly and you know what you're doing, you're never really gonna blow up anything. But I just feel like, you know, anybody that is new to trading stocks by the channel, I just don't want that blood on my hands. Coinbase is sending that 10,231. L Bank is sitting at 10,124. Yeah, like I said, my stop loss is at 11,880. Just about. So pretty much almost a. I mean, if we do happen to put in the smaller time frame ABC before going back down, it's gonna suck because more than definitely it's gonna hit my stop. But I am used to jumping back into trades, so we'll see. We'll see. Looks like the SPY actually might want to retry that high there. Joe, what's going on, man? How you doing? Why not take a little off your short to increase the stop loss? Because for me, like the way my brain works, things need to be set in stone. All right. When I sized up the trade, I had a certain risk in mind and I had a certain reward in mind. Well, perspective reward. Obviously, we'll never know exactly how far we'll get. But if I start manipulating things, I start making mistakes. All right, when you start allowing yourself to do things to not get stopped out or increase profit too much, like you start doing things that are going to put you in a bad position. And I'm sure a lot of people have done that. You know, maybe you have a long trade and then, you know, I'm like, oh, I might get stopped out of my long trade even though I think it's going to go up. And then, you know, opposite situation, you type in chat, why not add a little bit more in order to make sure that you can increase your stop loss or your liquidation point, whatever. And of course, does it work? Sure. But what if it just keeps going down? So for me, I when I set up my trade, I am very comfortable with what I'm going to lose. I'm very comfortable with what I'm going to make. If I start changing those parameters just based on emotions or how the chart's playing out, like I said, I start making those small mistakes, and those add up over time. And with the whole add to your long position to make sure that you can cover your liquidation, stuff like that, oh, those are not small mistakes. Those are big ones. Those will crush you. Done that in the past. Because the issue is, right, one of the times that you do it, and if you're lucky enough, the first time you do it, it will work. And because of that, you actually might make more money than you were before. So like it changes how your brain looks at it, and then you're more likely to do it next time, and next time, and next time. And each time that it's successful, you're more likely to do it. But then there's going to be that one time where you're like, it worked before, why is it going to work again? And you keep adding, and you keep adding, and you keep adding. All of a sudden, you're at 4 times the risk that you were originally. And then boom. Well, that's the thing. Like, to me, the way that I size my risk, all right, I'm responding to a stop loss at all-time high is wild. You know, these market makers are hunting that price to stop out the beginners. I think it goes both ways, though, doesn't it? So, you know, when we have these little blips to the upside past these resistances, they're building liquidity for people that are taking breakout trades. So if they're trying to sell into it, they're selling into the breakout trades. Of course, it's a fight between the two, so it might cause you know, one of my stop losses to get slipped. But I don't see it as, you know, any different than any other range. All right. And for me, the whole point of ABCs and having the whole thing of if this, then that is to prevent your mindset from this whole market maker's ordeal that someone's always trying out, you know, trying to get you, blah, blah, blah. Because to me, as long as your risk is sized appropriately, the reward payoff is so substantially high that even if you get stopped out 4 or 5 times, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Because if you add 40% to your account to the downside, but you only lost 3 to 5% up here, then in all reality, there's no issue. I mean, that goes for pretty much any time frame. Now, obviously, your stop and your risk is going to be sized appropriately to the size of the structure that you're playing, but you get my point. I'm not afraid of getting stopped out. Getting stopped out to me is just like breathing. All right, sometimes you get hiccups. Do they suck for a little bit? Yeah, but you get over them. Now, if you're using 10% risk and you get stopped out 5 times, sure. All right, but then that's on you. All right, there's no reason to be using 10% risk. You know, I mean, sometimes I'll go 5% risk if I'm really feeling confident on something, but it's not that often. And usually it's the start of an account where I'll be more likely to use 5% risk. All right, if I'm working on like a $100,000 account, or more than that, I'm not using anything more than like 2%, if that. All right, you really don't have to, like, the stronger and larger your account gets, the less and less risk you have to use in order to make a decent living. All right, beyond that point, it's just greed. All right, but obviously in the end goal, all right, if you're trying to be a trader, your whole thing is build up your account to a point where you can make a comfortable living, and then beyond that point, it's all about security. How can I not lose it? And the best way to not lose it is to make sure that your Kelly criterion is as strong as possible. You know, sitting in kind of like the 33% to 50% full Kelly. I would say at that point, you're pretty much null and void as long as the other math of your trading strategy lines up. Pushing ever closer. I've been burned on so many stop losses that are right on or just barely above. I mean, I get that, but like it's all a perception thing, right? Your brain likes to remember the negative things. It doesn't like to remember the positive things. But I mean, obviously, when you have access to a chart, you can go back and you can look at all the positive things. There's been so many times where we've had one and dones. We've had close calls where, you know, like stuff like this. You got an ABC. It's a one and done. Boom, straight back up. Right here, this top here. Pretty much a one and done. Obviously, there's a little bit of shaking around, so depending on how small your stop loss is. But, yeah, like I said, your brain likes to remember the bad stuff. So, like right here, for example, you know, if you took this ABC, oh yeah, we did come back down here. So, depending on the size of your stop loss, you might have gotten stopped out. But you look at the other side of the puzzle, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. Absolutely. More than one way to skin a cat. It's just obviously from my perspective, talking to people, you know, I have to make sure that I do things that I think, or say things that I think would be more beneficial to a newer player. It's been about 18 years since we played Wordle. I just want to check it out here. I don't remember the, I think it was like Ray's Donut. It was our... That kind of sucks. Let's see what we got left. We got THANK. Okay, so we got TA. There's no R. TA. Do we have a K? No, we don't have a K. We don't have... I was thinking TAC, but we don't have the K. Tap. No, it can't be tape. It can't be... Is there any other words I can make here to get... we got plum... Plummy? Plumbing? Plum? Trying to get some of these letters to figure out which ones are used and which ones aren't. Okay, so that's... We got T-A blank blank Y. All right, Joe. I'll check you later, man. Thanks for stopping by. Taggy. Damn it. Maybe Tabby. I don't see... No. Taffy. God dang it. I don't think that's the first one I've lost, but definitely one of very few. Usually we can always figure it out, but there's just too many options. There was tacky, there was taffy, there's tabby. I figured it was gonna be tabby. BK. Orange BK. What's going on, man? Good evening. How do you feel about moving your entry point to where your stop loss would be? I mean, that's pretty much the same thing as adding to a losing trade. If I have that correct, right? Because, you know, if you open up a trade here and your stop loss is here, well, in order to get your entry point to where your stop loss would be, then that would mean that the price is probably like moving up. And then you exit this trade and then enter where your stop loss would be. Now, if you were saying move your stop loss to your entry point, it depends on, like, obviously, like, how far away price action is from where you started. Like, I wouldn't do it immediately because, I mean, what's the point of that? What's the point of even having a stop loss then? But, you know, price action would have to be quite significantly down here in order for me to be, like, feel comfortable to even move that. But putting your entry point where your stop loss would be just means that you're... It doesn't work with ABCs, in my opinion. Because ABCs, you're entering because of the ABC. So if you're entering where your stop loss would be, then you're entering in a zone that isn't technically... Like, so, like, if you're in a bullish ABC, you're entering below the support. So to me, you're basically saying, like, I don't care that the probability is to the downside, I'm still going to enter long. So I wouldn't recommend it. It's just not something that I would do. With your ABC method, how many accounts do you manage the hedge positions? So I have one swing trade account on, well, I guess two technically. I have LBank and I have Femex, but Femex might be on the out and out. And then I have my Coinbase accounts. I have a Kraken account. One of them is just like HODL. You know, just to make sure that, like, any big moves I have to make on spot, I have open liquidity. I have the hardware wallet where I have just long-term storage. And then I have a swing trade spot for larger positions as well. As time has gone on and as the accounts have grown, I'm trying to transition to more spot. It is a little bit more of a headache just because, like, obviously, you know, the feeling of missing out on short positions for the extra profit does suck. But in the end, like, once it's all said and done, you're really not missing out on, like, too terribly much. And it's a lot easier for paperwork. So that's the plus side of it. Especially for someone that isn't, you know, paying anybody else to do anything. But yeah, like 3 or 4 accounts in total. I mean, if you would have asked me a couple years ago, it would have been like 6 or 7 accounts. You know, I would have a scalp account, a medium account, a swing account. You know, obviously when Bybit didn't have the ability to have an open long and open short on the same profile, you know, I had opposite accounts for the hedge trades. Obviously, and then I had spot, and then I had long-term storage, all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, you know, just 3 or 4. No reason to make it complicated. When taking profits, how does one take profits in the States? So for me, any profits that are made, so like there's kind of a reason why on a lot of like the Bybit profiles and stuff, I kind of start from like 0 to hero. For me, there is the issue of taxes when you transfer stuff from Bybit, since it's technically outside of like jurisdiction. You can't really claim a lot of capital losses on it, or else you're going to start raising suspicion. So a lot of that is just plain Jane, like pure capital gain. So like you're like any money that's being transferred over, you're pretty much paying full taxes on it. So that's another reason why I'm trying to transfer more towards spot as the accounts grow in size. Just because then I can actually take the full ability of capital loss. Now, obviously, best case scenario is you don't have any, because obviously then that means you're making good trades. But obviously things happen. For me, I've never had an issue with Coinbase. You know, I mean, there was like a couple months where like they disabled my buys, but I think that was just like a security issue because of how much money was moving through my account so quickly. Because I mean, like in the span of a year, I probably had, you know, a couple 100,000 go through there. But yeah, I mean, Coinbase, Kraken, transferred over. I'd always like transfer it to like a hardware wallet and then transfer it to like Coinbase or Kraken. But I never been one to like figure out like the cheapest way for fees and all that kind of stuff. I just go with the flow. Yeah, am I probably paying more than the next guy? Sure. But it doesn't really matter to me in the end. You ever hit a high rank in CS? I noticed the hours. In CSGO, I was global elite for a bit. I usually hung around like Supreme Master First Class just because like most of my time was spent on like Face It or Sivo or what was the other one? Damn. I don't think I played much ESEA. I mean, I played it for a bit, but when I was a kid, obviously, just like most CS players, I wanted to be a professional CSGO player. So, I tried to climb up on Face It, and I think I got to like Face It 9. Yeah. On CS2, because I mean, I just didn't take it as serious as I did as a kid. I think my highest rank was like 18,500 until I like took another break. Like I haven't played in a while. I play like maybe one game like every week with a friend or something, but just haven't really felt the need to play it at the moment. Because I mean, I got addicted to Marvel Rivals. Taking a little bit of a break on that as well, just because you play so many hours that it just kind of becomes repetitive. So at the moment, I'm just playing a little bit of Rust. Just not like doing like any insane PvP. I'm just been trying to get a farm, get blueprints. That way, maybe next wipe, I'll actually be able to compete in PvP and raiding and all that kind of stuff. We've been checking out like a lot of like indie games. There's a really, really cool demo on Steam. It's called Jump Ship. So I would say you probably need like a minimum of 3 people. You can do it solo, but it's not necessarily that fun to do it solo. But essentially, it's like a roguelike PvE ship maintenance and expansion game. So essentially, like you have I think up to 5. Is it 5 or does it show how many players? we played with 4 people, and essentially like you have one person that acts like an engineer, going around and putting out fires on the ship, repairing the outside of the ship. It's actually a really cool game. It's a little bit jank just because it's brand new and this is just a demo, but I can see what they're going for, and it's really cool. So whenever this starts to like actually come out, I'm gonna definitely be interested in it. But check it out if you got a couple friends to play with. It's a free demo. You get a decent amount of content out of the demo actually. I would say you probably get roughly 2 to 3 hours worth of gameplay, and it's a good bit of fun. There's one person that acts as the pilot / gunner. There's one person that's purely a gunner. One person can even like go outside the ship and fly around and like grapple to other spaceships and take them out manually. Like, it's really cool. Just unfortunate that all we have right now is the demo, so can't really go much further than what we've already played. But check it out. Check it out if you got 3 or 4 friends. Dude, there's so many movement mechanics in that game that if it was VR, I'd probably throw up. I almost threw up playing it just straight up, because like you have like these magnetic boots that when you're on the outside of the ship, you can like go under the ship, on the side of the ship, on top of the ship. So your camera is always flipping angles, and obviously you're in space, so you never have like an orientation on where to face, like when you're like free floating. So it's if it was in VR, I would throw up. I would throw up so bad. I can only imagine for like older gamers how bad that game would be in VR. See, I just I got Helldivers 2. I did. I just didn't, it didn't click with me, and I don't know why. Because I know everybody loved it. I don't know, like maybe I've just like lost that magic to kind of like make up scenarios in my head, or like getting engrossed in the immersion of a game. It's you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just like a schizophrenic or something. But like, when I was a kid, when you're playing GTA or Prototype or like any like free open, not free, but like open world game where there's a story, but like the majority of the gameplay comes from like you as the player. Like, you can kind of just like make up shit and like have fun and give characters voices, and maybe I sound crazy here, but there was like the magic of being a kid and being able to like immerse yourself in the game, like feel like you're the character, stuff like that. And as I've gotten older, like that's just kind of like gone away. So games like Rust, for example, like I am the character. Like, there's no story. I do what I want. So like the scenario or the story is what I'm doing. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass here. But it has kind of ruined a lot of games for me. Maybe it's just a me problem. I would say like the last game that like I honestly had like a really, really good time with in terms of like an open world game that I really didn't feel empty was Valheim. Valheim, I liked the building, I liked, the gathering, the farming. It felt like there was always something to do, and it caught my attention. And I liked the progressionary system of it. It's like it was very rewarding. But like a lot of other games, it's a little bit harder to like grasp that like sense of progression and feel like you're doing something. So the ABC to 100,007. So the ABC to 100,700 means something. 100,007. You're talking about this one? So as soon as we got the extension and then the rejection off of the previous thing here, then we created this one. I really want to look at like this level in particular as meaningful. I'd more look at it from this perspective here. So like this was the long ABC that is causing the effect on the market, in my opinion. But obviously, is it enough to overpower the macro position here? That's the battle between the two red and greens that I've been concerned with. Now, like if you're a smaller time frame trader, then yeah, it would have meant something when it was happening. But as we developed and the extension happened, this would be the new level where you would be long from, and then obviously your stop loss would be somewhere underneath it, and that's where you would be holding your long position from. And then if you're playing on the smaller time frames, especially with a structure of a size like this, you know, it's really in the eye of the beholder. But like as soon as you start hitting like major resistances, I would start, you know, taking profit. Another question: when altcoins move, they move in unison. Sushi put in a long at 61. She put in a long at decimals. AVAX put in a long at 19.75. So my question is, how many coins will you be trading? In the past, you know, obviously when you see that many opportunities, you want to take them all. But you look at the ranges. You know, which coins have, you know, so like if we look at like Bitcoin here, all right, and then we were like sizing up a macro trade. All right, we look at the local lows. So like Bitcoin only really has a major local low down here at 74. And then obviously the short is coming from up here. So you have a maximum range of 31%. So obviously with shorts, it's a little bit different. You know, you're going to take profit regardless on your short somewhere around the 50% mark if it ever gets there, despite any like signs that it's going to slow down, because you're really like missing out on amplifying your profits. All right, shorts have diminishing returns because you know like you can only go from 0 to 100. You cannot go 200, 300% like you can on a long. So I would look at the altcoins that you have these trades lined up on and pick, you know, maybe two. You know, don't spread yourself too thin and trade 5 different coins and say, I'm going to use 1% risk on all of them. And now you're, you know, using 5% risk across the board. And then maybe you get stopped out twice on each of them. So now you're up to, you know, 15% in the hole, just trying to trade altcoins. So if you pick, you know, 2, maybe 3 that has the highest profit potential, in terms of like the maximum range that you possibly could see without any particular resistance to either side, well then you can narrow it down to the best risk to reward ratios, pick those ones, and not spread yourself too thin. And the more things you're trading, like let's say I'm using 2% risk as a standard for my account. Well, if I want to go from trading 1 coin with 2% risk, I should probably either cut that in half or cut that even into fourths. All right, because it can get pretty wild pretty fast when you start creating more points of failure. Well, we all know how that works. All right, sometimes on Bitcoin you get stopped out 4 times before things really start moving, but of course the payoff in the end is a 30 R&R trade, so it doesn't hurt. But when you have 5 different coins and you're getting stopped out 5 or even 6 or 7 times because altcoins are more of a bitch, well, you can really start to get hurt. All right, it's a very careful game. So, obviously Bitcoin is my main boy, and if I choose to go play an altcoin, it's usually one at a time nowadays. I don't try to trade 4 or 5 different assets at one time. Like I said, we've done in the past, but we always limit our risk and maybe even increase stop losses on the altcoins to try to make sure that it's still within reason. So there's a 15-year resistance, which BTC tops 120K and 69K and 17K. The last tops you think it will break it the first time ever this run. Having a little bit of trouble understand what you're saying here. So there's a 15-year resistance, which BTC tops 120K, 69K, 17K. Are you using a diagonal line? To me, I don't prescribe to diagonal lines. Of course, do they work to some extent? Sure. But in my opinion, it's just not how I look at things. So, I mean, with this, for example, I mean, you're looking at pretty much a curved line, right? I just don't look at the market in this way. I'm that's just not how I see things. The most I ever do is I look at, just like a curved line underneath, just to kind of show like a projection. But in reality, like the real world just doesn't work like that. Now, this is the very start of an asset, so of course it's going to have some sort of just upwards trend, slowly gaining, losing momentum over time. But I look at things in terms of horizontals, flat lines. So to me, I just don't, I'm not going to project what the top's going to be based off of that. Because to me, there is no top. There's no set in stone, we're going to go here and get rejected. That's just not how I see things. So, I mean, like, if you were to connect these two tops, during this bull market, you're probably calling for, 200K, but then we fell short. So, like here, if you draw that line, you might be calling for 300K, and then we fall short. So to me, I just deal with flat lines. I try to deal with definitely macro, but not like overestimating like where we're going to be in 5 years. To me, I take advantage of what the market shows me it wants to do or is trying to do, and I let it go where it wants. I don't try to pretend like I know exactly where the bottom's going to be or the top is going to be. We might make up funny numbers just as a projection, but in all reality, it's just as good as anybody else's guess. So, I look at the tops and bottoms of ranges. I look at the ABCs to try to find out where those projected bottoms and tops could be. Take the risk to reward position. If it pays off, it pays off. And then obviously, as price moves on, you can see how we interact to continue to retest or create new ranges. And I just look at things as like an if this and that statement. So, like from a macro perspective, like, you know, if I say our only two support regions are here, here, you know, this is a local low as well, here, 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 and here. Obviously, these two are definitely the strongest. I would say next up would probably be this one, and then, yeah, if we kind of like thin the herd here, I would say that these are the only reliable supports on Bitcoin. So if we're putting in an ABC top here, A to B to C, and then A to B to C. All right. Well, if this resistance holds, my projection, I'm not going to say like, oh, it's going to 49K, but it's a possibility. All right. If this rejection holds and we come back down to 74,000 and we can't hold 74,000, well, then we are going to 49K. And if we can't hold 49K, well, then we're going to 25K. It's a simple progressionary system. It's not me saying that one is going to happen. It's just an if this and that statement. So like right here, for example, you know, at the time, this was a huge thing. On everybody's charts, it looked like it was massive. Obviously, in perspective, it looks like a tiny blip on the map. But once again, it's a progressionary system. You know, as price action continues to the upside and we build these support levels, especially the ones that have ABCs, well, once you start taking shorts at the top of these regions, well, then it's a progressionary system. We come down to the first support. We get a bounce. We come back down again. We break through. We fall to the second one. The second one doesn't hold, so we fall to the third one. And then we finally found support. And those were all reflected in the price beforehand. And then we look at the bull market as a whole, and we look for any particular local lows, any change of trend. So obviously we have here, we have here, 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 and here. So like when the actual bull market stopped and we're looking for the end of the bear market, well, we look at the local lows. We look here, 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 and here. So it's a progressionary system. Now, obviously, as new major local lows are built, well, these ones are no longer necessarily important because they've already been retested. So now we're looking at local low here, here, and here for the new wave to the downside. So you can see how price action kind of revolved around this level here. We fell through it. We fell to the next one here, and then we fell down, and then we fell to the next one, and then we found support. But if we did not find support there, then we probably would have dropped down to 9.8K. Just how things work. Because all the market is doing is finding what is the correct price of an asset at any given point in time. So the best way to do that is use historical data. That's the thing, right? Like, that number was completely legitimate. well, not necessarily like 8K, but like, 9.8K was a completely legitimate number. All right, but once we, created the level of support here, it was pretty fair for me to say, like, okay, we're done. We have the ABC. We retested a local low. We confirmed support back above. Beyond that point, it was pretty easy to say, like, that was probably the end of the bear market. Where did I learn ABCs? I taught them to myself. Just over the course of many years and like many different trading styles. Like most people, I started off with like just indicators. Like I had 1,000 indicators on my screen. I had RSI, stochastics, MACD, market cipher, you name it, I probably used it. And it just kept failing me because there was just too much confluence issues and just how do I size my bets and where do I enter, and like all, obviously leverage threw a wrench in there as well. So I went with Elliott Wave, and although it did well for a while, I started running into problems with that. So, just as I continued, I just figured out like what are the core fundamentals that makes trading profitable. Well, one, it's good psychology. All right, understanding that you have I don't care who you are, you have no clue. You have no clue where something is going. Doesn't matter what the asset is. And yeah, Bitcoin does have underlying fundamentals that cause a certain cyclic system, but you have no clue what the top is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what rainbow chart you show me. All right. There's so many factors that go into it. So once you start understanding that you have no control, and the only thing that you can do is find these small hints, because that's all they are. They're hints on what could happen. All right. For me, as I continued playing with the chart, I started noticing that the chart usually creates a 3-structured system. And it doesn't matter what chart you go look at. I beg you to go find me a chart that's not 5 days old. All right. And I will show you plenty of opportunities where the chart made a three-pronged system and it gave you either a top or a bottom. So I began just kind of developing the system around simplicity. Being able to take complicated trends, narrow them down to their important parts, and then start building the math upon that. Adding in Kelly criterion to make sure that the size of my bets were appropriate. And just creating a system where like I know exactly where I want to enter. I know exactly where I want to exit. Now where I exit for profit is based purely on what the chart shows me, because once again, I have no clue. I have no clue where the price is going to stop or where the next major top and the next major bottom is going to be. But once the chart starts to give me those hints, well, then I can start taking advantage. So ABCs are, simply put, a simplification of Elliott Wave. I know Johnny sees me streaming right now. Wait, he's still calling me. There we go. So, is it probably the most profitable thing that you can do in the world? No, I'm sure there's some algo trader out there that's doing something ridiculous and making a super amount of money. I'm not arguing that. But for someone who is doing it hands-on and doesn't have like 1,000 years in order to figure out the algo trading, well, that's where I think I have an edge. because what I do is profitable, and to a certain extent, extremely profitable when the tides turn our way. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Do you have a certain take profit strategy, or is it dependent on the structure of the ABC relevant to supports and resistances? So for shorts, if a short ever hits 50% profit, not leverage, but like real chart data, then I'm just going to flat out take profit. Because beyond that point, you're just getting diminishing returns on your short. And I just rather have the open liquidity for something else that might come up. For long trades, it's a little bit different. So this is the part that people hate. And this is why I think ABCs, despite being so incredibly simple, most people can't do it. One, the barrier to entry is the glasses. That's what I call it. Where I can look at a chart and in 5 seconds, my eyes see every single significant ABC. And the thing is, I can filter out noise. That's the big thing. A lot of people, that get so caught up on these little blips and stuff like that, and I can filter out the noise. But beyond that point is how you take your profit. So if I have an uptrend, or let's say that we're in a long trade from a previous ABC here, most people, they're going to be looking at the previous resistance as when to take profit, or they might be looking at the 0.382, 0.618, to take profit. But me, like I said, I have no clue where the price is going to go. So for me, I'm looking for big wins. I'm looking for the wins that other people wish they had. So I'll sit on this trade forever. And then eventually, the market's going to do that. Right? And once you see an A to a B, I can set my take profit here. Only if we go below it. And the reason for that is because if we come back above it, I can re-enter that original long position up here. So a really good example of this, like this is the first trade, setup where like I really adhered to that method. So I did take a short off the top of the bull market, but I didn't hold it. I probably took profit somewhere around here. So then I started looking at it and I said, I'm not going to do that again. So the next time that we got a decent ABC, which was this one here, I took the short trade and I held it. I held it all the way down. I held it all the way up. I held it all the way down. I held it all the way up. But now we have another short ABC. So once that confirmed to the downside, well, actually, once we put in the higher high here, I took profit. And then once it confirmed back down to the downside, I re-entered. And then I held it all the way down, held it up, down, up. I took profit again right here, and then once we confirmed it back down to the downside, right here, I re-entered the short. Now, it did get kind of messy right here. So we had downtrend, uptrend, downtrend, or uptrend, downtrend, downtrend. I exited the short here, and I tried to re-enter here, and then it kind of got rocky on me, which I did end up taking that one, and then I took profit here, and then I took this one, and then obviously FTX dumped. But then by the time the market was like turning around, so I did kind of hit a stretch here where I maybe like lost a little bit, but I made so much money on the way down that it didn't matter. And then obviously we had the macro trade that was cooking the entire time. And then obviously things turned around and became long position. And that long position really didn't get an opportunity to jump out. I mean, you could have done it here as well. This was a opportunity to go long. But like until like right here, you probably would have taken profit on your long position here. And then obviously things went on, and eventually you caught the next wave. You did it again. On this one, you would have taken profit here and then entered the next one. And right now, I've already taken profit because this macro ABC to me could be the end. The Saudis, the Saudi princes. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So like the whole point of ABCs is you don't pretend like you know where something is going. And when you get an opportunity to hedge, you create a range. And you've already made the money on the short ABC. So when you take the long ABC, you're just securing your profit. So yeah, like now you're not making any money between this range as long as you have a long and a short open. But the second it breaks to one side or the other, you're now in even more profit. And you're probably continuing to a much greater range. And then eventually, you know, like let's say in this case scenario, the long wins. And we extend the range, and then yeah, maybe later we get here. So yeah, you were up, you know, 30% profit. And if you would have gotten some sort of position to enter at a lower number, you could have shortened this range. But that's the whole point, is creating ranges, creating hedges, working your way through the map, and making sure that you don't get burnt. AZTV, not gonna lie, I feel like long on the top. All right, man, pack it up. You guys heard it here first. He wants to long the top. It's done. This is officially the top of the bull market. I'm just kidding. If you want to take the breakout trade, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but just the way the market's been acting, I just don't see it as an opportune thing for me to do. Ethereum breakout trade. It's there. It's there if you want to take it. But once again, I I don't really do breakout trades all that often anymore, at least. Unless I really feel like the pressure has been cooked up. I just don't feel like that right now. To me, this is an A to a B to a C. Since you have take profit on shorts at 50%, what is a good number where you, without a doubt, have to take profit on a long? 100%, 150. For longs, obviously, like if something in my daily life influences, like, oh, I need some quick cash, maybe. But in my opinion, it's better to just wait. Especially with assets like Bitcoin. I mean, if we're talking about like, you know, some other useless altcoin, like then probably, but with Bitcoin, like the whole perspective is it's going to be on an uptrend. So if you catch a local low, especially a macro one, what point do you have to, you know, just immediately take profit on a long? Now, let's say you have a smaller account, like you started with 1,000, and for whatever reason, that long is now worth like 2,000. You might be better off. Well, like once again, that just plays into the aspect of like compounding your portfolio through ABCs going forward. I would say, yeah, just wait for the next major ABC long position. I mean, if you're really up money, but the problem is as soon as you take, like, this is what I know is going to happen. As soon as you take profit on that long position, you're going to be looking for the next one. And you're going to want to jump in it. It doesn't matter how small of a time frame you have to go. You're going to be looking to put that newly found profit into a compounded trade. And you might make up shit. So to me, it's better to wait for a legitimate pattern that once you take that profit, you know exactly where you can get back into the market. Is it going to be the very, very tippy top that you take profit? Probably not. But I think it's better to wait. Like if you would have caught me maybe 2 years ago, you probably would have caught me playing on like the 30-minute to an hour time frame. But like as I've progressed, I like the simplicity of it. I don't like to get all flustered and have to stay up until, you know, God knows when, babysitting an entry. I you know, every couple weeks or months, there'll be a point where I do have to babysit an entry, but then beyond that point, it's just riding. And I don't have to worry about it. And to me, I like that. I like the stress-free effect of the larger swing trade ABCs. Do they take significantly longer to work themselves out? Of course they do. But to me, that's more time to go do regular things. And it's definitely helpful to apply to stocks and stuff like that. Obviously, the longer time frame that you're playing on, capital gains hits less and less. So, all right. With that being said, guys, probably log off for tonight. Been live for about an hour and 20 minutes. I appreciate everybody showing up, as always. And once again, you know, we've kind of been doing this nightly thing. I can't guarantee I'm going to be here every single night, but you know, I'm having a good time sticking around, getting back in touch with you guys, and you know, keeping a little bit more track of the market than I usually do. But with that being said, I hope you guys have good nights, good days, good mornings. I'll probably go back to getting steamrolled on Rust until I fall asleep here. Appreciate you stopping in, Dex. Appreciate you stopping in. Let's go ahead and I'm kind of a little bit sour on the fact that we we fail today's Wordle. So let me do one where it's not the word of the day. It's just a random word. Because I need a win here. So we have S-A-N... Damn, that was not a good use of my letters there. Alright, so I know the S doesn't go there. Maybe the N or the O? I need an R if I wanted to do orange. Alright, we got an S-O-N-A. We have 4 out of the 5 letters. N-A... S-O... So it's not S. And okay, what we got? We got... I'm gonna type one thing just to see here. Damn. I don't know what All right, we got one more try here. OAS blank N. We have blank ASON. We have Mason, Jason, Hasten. I'm gonna go with Mason. Did we already use? We didn't use them yet, so it's. All right, cool. All right, I don't feel so defeated today. At least we got one Wordle, you know. BK, thank you for stopping in, man. I appreciate you. And AS, later, Kite. Love you, buddy. Love you as well, man. AZTV, in 2021, we made a slightly higher high, such as 58K, then 61, 63, and 65, before ultimately rolling over. And we have done that so far. I mean, you look at it and looks exactly like that, right? We made that connection earlier. We have 1 top, 2 top, 3 top, 4. 5 top, give me some more. So, something to be aware of. All right, guys. I'll check you later. I can't promise it's gonna be tomorrow night, but if I'm around, I will jump on. You know, and we'll hang out for a bit. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and choose something for the outro today. Oh, I already have YouTube music up. It's on my other thing. What am I doing? We'll just do this one. All right, guys. I appreciate your time tonight, as always. And I'll see you soon. Bye!
I count every day.
8th grade, I made a dumb move. Some dude tried to hate and I gave him the 1-2. Analyze stuff I said and asked me a little crib in a pup called this. So for now I'm about to kick it, for now I'm about to chill. I've been weaning off the pills, now I'm weaning off the liquor. Here I go again, ducking off from authority. Rapping is my job, sobriety's a priority. Sammy loves carbs, carbs. Fettuccine carbonara, nar. Show a motherfucker that part when somebody try to say this in the chat. I got bars. I'm so well made and well paid. Little party yet a lot of hell raised. Self-made since 12th grade and I never had to move to LA. Shut up.
Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall. Can't do it, I can't do it on my own. Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall.
I count every day.
Is it performative? Of course it is. I'm over you, I'm over that, I'm over this. Got a warrant, haven't been to Florida since. So now I get my oranges and poured it in. For the win. The sort of shit they caught me at the border with. In every crevice and crack and orifice. I sorta didn't, then again I sorta did. I don't know. Maybe this is where the plot thickens. Rock bottom is when you decide to stop digging. I can hear the timer on the clock ticking. When I'm gone, then baby, play this song for them. Wake me when October ends. Take me way back home again. Say hello and hey, we'll maybe still be sober then.
Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall. Can't do it, I can't do it on my own. Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall.
I count every day.
If you wanna bounce to it, you better bounce to it. Turn it up and let the 808 pound to it. Get loud, show 'em how you get down to it. And say set, and what Emily chow to me.
Bounce to it, you better bounce to it. Turn it up